Welcome to the Evolution of Aloha podcast with me, Dr. Jerry Ibalarosa Tanel. Now let's talk story. Okay. All right. Here we go. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Evolution of Aloha podcast, a Plowline Media production. And I am your host, Dr. Jerry Ibalarosa Tanel. Today, we're going to be talking with Paola Quijada, a graduate of Ethnic Studies from Washington State Universities. She is an intern for Co3 Consulting and Plowline Media Productions. But before we get started, I'd like to go ahead and honor the lands in which our feet stand. And I'll begin by acknowledging that those who are gathering in the Pacific Northwest area, we are on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish people who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin since time immemorial. We respect this place and honor the sacred spiritual connection to the land, water, and its people, past, present, and future. By acknowledging these lands and their original indigenous inhabitants, we reach back to our own indigenous roots and reflects on the impacts of colonialism and the lands from which all our people come. We are connected to our ancestors through this connection to land, for the land is what connects us all. So please join us in taking a moment to honor the land of the traditional people in a territory in which you stand. Today, we honor the Tulalip tribes and the allied bands for their enduring care and continuous protection of the land where we currently reside. So thank you so much. Paola, thank you so much for being here with me today. I love that we are doing this, being that you're going to be the one that is actually doing all of the work for Plowline Media Productions.
Behind the scenes?
Yes, absolutely, behind the scenes. So just let the audience know who you are, where you're coming in from, and all that great stuff before we get started.
All right. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk, to see where this conversation takes us. My name is Paola Quijada. I use she, her pronouns. I was born in Mexico, but moved to the US when I was 4, and moved around. But now I'm living in Linwood, and trying to see what path to take with my life. But I know that activism is most definitely going to be a part of it. It's just finding where I fit in.
So tell me a little bit about your, what are you doing in regards to activism? What are some of the things that you're doing out there?
Well, a lot of it, at least right now, I think is building community. I don't have all the knowledge in the world, and so I need to build community to grow and expand what knowledge I have, and to provide like a safe space for us to learn things that we don't know. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm doing right now. That's what I'm focusing on. We can get more into like the specifics, but it's building community, and reading.
That's awesome. You got a lot of books back there.
Yeah.
So when you talk about, I hear a lot, we hear a lot out in, in our community on a safe space. What does that look like? What does a safe space look like?
I think it's one where we call people in instead of calling people out and attacking them, because when people don't feel safe enough to express what they don't know or what they might be ignorant in, there's no room to grow. There's no room to build anything. And so a safe space is a community where you can just come as you are, where you are, and we all have the tools to be able to process what needs to be talked about adequately, effectively.
That's awesome. What are some of the tools that you utilize to create that safe space?
Well, it starts with me, like what values that are important to me and how I express that to other people. I like to think when I talk to people, I try to be as genuine as I can and as intentional as I can with them so that they know I am someone that they can talk to about anything. And I say that like I show that by introducing conversation, giving reassurance, like there's like you don't have to worry about what I think of you because it doesn't matter. I'm My goal in this world is to be as open as possible and to build as much community through love as possible. So you can really tell me anything. We can grow and talk about it as we move forward.
And that is so hard to do for some people, right? Because when they see that you are in this place of activism, the things that you are actually fighting for are the very things that people feel like, why are you even doing that? Right. So, what are some of the things, I know that you were talking about going out and protesting. What are some of the things that you're protesting about?
Well, right now, I don't know how much context to give, but there's a genocide happening in Palestine right now. And our government is sending a military aid to Israel to continue this genocide, um, directly coming from our tax dollars. So that's something that I'm going out and protesting right now. I'm talking to it about it with my friends, my family. But yeah, that's one of the issues that is most prevalent to me right now.
I feel that. I feel that. I mean, it's like here we are in the United States, not even concerned. Well, some of us may be concerned about what's happening over there, but when there's not an impact on us directly, then it's like, why should we even care? Right? Is that I know that there were some things that was happening during the Super Bowl. And while everyone is here celebrating the Super Bowl, there are bodies that being blown apart, and it's like, well, my kids are okay. So I don't even have to worry about that. So how do you deal with individuals or groups of people who feel that we shouldn't get involved in those things over there because that's not how do you deal with that when there's opposing points of views?
Well, internally, it's kind of hard too because when you believe in something so firmly and you don't understand why people don't see it, there's like a sort of anger that builds or annoyance, or I don't know what the word is, but there's a tension that rises. And sometimes it's hard to talk to people like who aren't on the same like level of who haven't been impacted the same way. But it's just keep talking about it. Like it's in their face, they can't ignore it. And at some point, like it starts with talking about Palestine. And then it's like, okay, if you think it's political, whatever your beliefs are, it has nothing to do with us. At the same time, let's talk about why you think that it has nothing to do with us.
Right.
And like it's human life. So essentially you're saying, I don't care about that life because my life is good. But what is the question that I always like ask is what's stopping the same thing from happening here? Because
Absolutely.
like a bomb could be dropped here any second.
Right.
Um,
Right.
which like living in the US, it at least we have hospitals. Like at least we have all of the resources we can to like help ourselves.
Unless it gets taken away, like what happened there,
Yeah.
right? It's like hospitals are being blown apart, resources are being eliminated. And so it's like, because that's such a privilege for us, because we have access to hospitals and resources, it's like, okay, well, we're okay. I think one of the things that people are missing is the fact that these are human beings just like us. These are babies. These are families. And if we don't have the heart to be able to step up and say something, then what the fuck, right? It's,
Yeah, literally.
it's
It does make sense. It does.
right, right. How can we, I mean, where's the compassion and the empathy? Where is, where's the aloha that I talk about all the time? Where is that? Are we, are we, are we walking among people that are just absolutely heartless, without a soul to be able to think about what's going on? And yeah.
And I think that's something that the exposure of this genocide is huge. There's billions and billions of videos about what's going on. And like there's no denying it. So those questions are incredibly important now to people that say, "Oh, I care about humans. I care about equality," but they don't actually go and do anything. It's like, okay, let's really look into that and see what you're actually doing. And I feel like some people might experience some cognitive dissonance. Um, but it's a conversation that we haven't had in previous years to this scale. So it's, I don't know. I see a lot of opportunity in this movement, for growth and conversation for a lot of people. So yeah.
Yeah, it's being able to reach back into our own humanity, reach back into, you know, just that compassionate heart that I do believe we all have. And it's like, when people start fighting one another, and we're here, and we start fighting with each other on things that we're standing up for and wanting to bring light to, and being like, you know what, we've got to be able to do something, we've got to stop this, we've got to be able to speak out and also hold our leadership accountable, right? Is that when we hold our leadership accountable, that means that it does come back to us, because we're the ones that's putting them into office. So
Yeah.
who are we voting for? It's like, do we know what's happening? Do we know what the people that we're putting into office, what they stand for? Or are we just looking at the small, little, minute things about what's going to privilege us?
Mhm.
What's going to uphold our own privileges? And, I think when we start to talk about things that can actually activate the somatic response and cause, cognitive dissonance to happen, I don't think our society really have the tools to be able to engage in those conversations,
Yeah.
right? It's like we don't ask the kinds of questions that is going to actually help to shift the paradigm, not just for the person that we're talking to, but to ourselves as well too. We don't ask questions like, wow, why is it that everyone is so up in arms about what's happening over with, in Palestine and Gaza? We don't ask those questions. And I think if we are going to live on a planet, we only have one planet
Mm.
right now, right?
Yeah.
Until we find another place for us to kind of like take off in a rocket ship and go live someplace else. But
Oh, God.
this is what we've got right now.
Yeah.
And it's going to take all of us to be able to make a change. So I think it starts with each individual to make a to make a change. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree 100%. Um, because at the end of the day, you are the one that's making the decisions to do this or not do that. And you're the only one that actually sees and knows entirely what you're doing. So it starts with being accountable to yourself, because it is nobody else's job but yourself to
Hmm.
like check yourself if you're actually acting on your beliefs and your values. Um, so I think it most definitely starts with the individual.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, it's like our country is it's so complex. I mean, everything that is happening right now in our society is so complex, and there are so many different layers to what is going on. And it's like, I don't know if you heard about um was it the Super Bowl where Reba McEntire sang the anthem, and then there was a black anthem that was sang, and people booed the artist that was singing the black anthem. And it was like, now there is an uproar. You can see it all over social media where they're like, well, there's only one anthem. We're Americans, and stop dividing us. And I'm like, oh my God.
We're already divided. What do you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like when we're not able to actually be inclusive and adapt to other ways of being, then we get stuck in this one way of thinking. And when that one way of thinking gets shaken up in any kind of way, it's like we're going to stand strong in what we believe. We are not going to move for anything or anyone, even though that slight shift may bring transformation that could actually bring collective liberation. That's hard for people to do.
Yeah.
That's hard for people to do.
Yeah. Especially, I feel like when we've created a society where like basic needs are a privilege, because there's a lot to lose. Like
Mhm.
for a lot of people, there's a lot to lose, like a house, and at least in terms of what it means to like pursue a revolution or any form of liberation like that. There's a lot to lose that we could lose. And so
How did you what made you get to this point where, it's like activism is at the forefront of what you do, and social justice and equity and liberation? What brought you to this point?
yeah, great question. um I don't know. I feel like, no, I do know. Um Growing up, well, my family, like we don't have papers, we don't have citizenship. And so that for me growing up was always like a big thing in my head, like ICE. Like I have to hide from the police, I have to hide from ICE. Like they are not here to serve me. And so it started from that. And then I started noticing like my peer, I don't know, you just start opening your eyes and you experience things in your life where you're like, hey, that's not fair. Or like that didn't feel nice. And it's because of a particular identity that I hold. And it's like, so then as time went on, I had a high school teacher, Mr. Jess. he he really gave me there was a race and racism class that I took, and that really gave me the language to be able to name like the things that I have been experiencing or like the oppression that I had been experiencing. And so there was a group called Bending the Arc, and we would plan different actions, or during a week we would uh, like we had a walkout in March protesting gun violence, and so we held a walkout at our school, and just feeling the community taking action, it brought me back to life. It gave me a sense of purpose. And then I started thinking about, okay, what do I really care about in this world? And I don't care about having a career. Like, I don't care about building this big, huge, giant resume. Like, I just want freedom. I want people to be liberated, because otherwise, like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of being here? I don't know. I don't know. That's just my brain, but that's what really solidified like being in this work.
For for some people, that will be listening to this, they will be like, well, why didn't you just do it the legal way then? Why didn't you, right? It's like, have you heard that before? How do
Yeah.
you, how do you address that?
That's a yeah, I don't know. I feel like people who ask that don't really understand the system. But also, I don't know, because I feel like a lot of immigrants who didn't have papers and now do have papers also have a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment. But I think it's the way that our government is structured, our society is structured to think about immigrants. And
And
if
we're all immigrants, just to say, right? It's like
yeah,
we all should be
right,
having
yeah.
papers to live here.
Like, what do you mean? And like the US causes a lot of destabilization in other countries that cause like migrations and people to flow in and out of countries. And it's, I don't know, doing it the legal, I don't know. I never know what to say to that really. Because I've waited almost 12, almost, no, almost 18 years for papers. Legally, I've been waiting. People have been waiting for so long to go to take the legal route to get papers or to even get like a visa to come to the US. So it's just, it's not as simple as like just do it legally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it's like if we go back into time and we look at colonization, we have to really ask ourselves the question, who's the immigrants? Right? And that's one of the things that people who are American don't really want to look at.
Mm.
They don't want to look at colonization, right? It's like there's a lot of times where I hear people say, oh, it's like my family has been here for, 10 generations. And I'm like, and who was here on the 11th? If you're only here, right? And so it's like we have the tendency to just look at as far back as we know without doing any research. We remain ignorant to what actually has happened in the past. And if we don't know what happened, how do we know to go forward?
Yeah.
So there is definitely a lot of ignorance out there in the world, and that is what is spiraling things out of control when people just start spewing things out, saying things like, go back to your country, or you don't belong here, or whatever it is. It's like yeah, it is it's kind of a trip. And so I wanted to kind of like ask you a little bit more specific questions. So looking beyond specific actions and towards systemic change, what do you believe are the key challenges in achieving lasting social justice in America? And how do you see your education and activism contributing to overcoming these challenges? I know that's a lot, but I'm going to give you 2 seconds to actually, think about it and answer. I'm just kidding.
Real quick. No, I think we were just kind of talking about it a little bit right now, like the indoctrination, the psychology that we have built internally and as a nation needs to change. Is one of the key challenges because we've been indoctrinated, like the US, land of the free, home of the brave. Um, we are democratic and we are just, and we're indoctrinated with these ideas and these beliefs about the US and about how the world works in general, like everything's good. Civil Rights Act was passed. We are good. um, but we're not. And there's a lot we need to unlearn. Um, not only as a society, but like we need to unlearn the way that because we colonize through relationships as well, interpersonal relationships. And so being taught by a colonizing nation, we're going to be handed down those same colonizing tactics. And so I think it's important for us to look within, to really, really like challenge like our beliefs and kind of adapt and move forward from there. But it's easier said than done because most people don't even realize that like their beliefs don't really match their actions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just say it. And yeah, I think I think we need to learn how to build healthier relationships. I guess it kind of goes into the same thing, but as the challenges, like we're very individualistic and we're not going to build a liberating movement with individuals. It's going to have to be a community. But again, how we build community, we don't have the tools for that.
Right.
Um, but like the guiding principles of Aloha, that's a tool to build community, and we need that. But it's not just going to happen in a day or in a week or maybe even in a year. But
Right.
yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for, thank you for bringing up the guiding principles of Aloha. And for our listeners who don't know what the guiding principles of Aloha is, it is a framework that I developed during my dissertation um, to engage in conversations and to also be able to self-reflect and to be self-aware and to self-regulate. So the guiding principles of Aloha takes ALOHA into in an acronym, and stands for ask questions and listen to avoid making unnecessary assumptions, to listen with the intention to understand and not judge. So if you're going to ask questions, listen and listen actively. Um, Observe what is happening in your body. If you're going to ask questions and listen, you may not like what you hear. So observe what's happening, the body language that you are actually evoking, and also what the other person is going through. I think the old part of the Aloha is so important because this is where somatic response happens. Cortisol starts, going through your bloodstream, and all of a sudden you're not listening anymore. Cognitive dissonance sets in, and you can never get to the place of heart, right? So H is the heart focus, which is to guide us through the entire process, to come from this place of compassion and empathy and leaning into discomfort, which is the final A in Aloha, which is adapt and acknowledge. And, that we all come from different places with different ideas. And when we're able to do that, we can actually transform our conversations and set the trajectory for social change and healing if we're able to adapt and acknowledge, which means that we need to be self-aware, we need to be able to self-regulate. We are so pissed off people. It's like our whole entire country, they're mad at something. Somebody's mad at something all the time,
Yeah.
that we're not even vibrating on the same level, right? It's like it's so chaotic. And so being able to self-regulate, come back to this place of calm, and be able to, engage in conversations that need to be had. Because as long as there are individuals that are still suffering from inequitable systems, we really can't be free of that, right? It's, I think our liberation is tied with each other. And if we understand that, that's when we can rise up together and be able to change things. But we need the tools. And I think if each individual in a community are able to have these tools of self-regulation, self-awareness, and, a self-reflection, then you can come together as a community because you see each other as a whole. You see yourself as one part of the greater whole, which means that we need to be responsible and accountable to that. And I don't think we're there yet.
No, I don't think so either.
But it takes time, like you said, right? It takes time. It takes relationship, authentic, true relationships, being able to have conversations that um, can be uncomfortable, but lean into it with curiosity instead of fear, which I think a lot of people, that's it, is that they're afraid to listen. And rightfully so, right? I mean, we've also got to acknowledge that there are a lot of activists out there that are like, well, if you ain't with us, you're against us, which means that if you're coming in not knowing how to do the work, then you need to go off and go do your own stuff before you come back into our circle, right? So it's like, how do we create a community where people are able to come in, and even if they're not knowing where to start, how do we hold space for people to show up where they are, and then we can help move them along?
Yeah.
How do we, I mean, it's like, that's one of the things. I think that's what Code 3 does, right? That's co-creating cohesive communities. I think that's our goal. At least I'd like that to be our goal. And so it's I think it's an honor to really have you here with us and being a partner with us in all of this, because you bring so much brilliance. You do. You bring a lot of brilliance. You bring a lot of heart to this work. And it's like, you're so smart.
Wow, thank you. That's really kind.
you you are, I mean, you're an integral player to this work. And so, having you here, and I was telling Jeremy the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, I just love seeing how much, even in the short time that you've been with us, 5, 6 months maybe,
Yeah.
just grown, just how much you have grown, and how much you're challenging yourself to continue to grow. Which sometimes I feel that, it's like people don't challenge themselves to grow. It's like, I'm comfortable. I'm good. I don't need to know what's happening in the world. I'm just going to
Yeah.
live in my bubble. And
Yeah.
you know, it's like, oh, you're not like that. So yeah, so I really appreciate everything that you bring to us.
Thank you. Likewise, I'm growing alongside with you guys, and I'm also learning so much with you. And I'm grateful, even just like the small amount of time I feel like that we spend together. I've taken a lot of our conversation and have applied it to like my outside world, and also like when it comes to like taking care of myself and remembering it things aren't going to change like that.
Yeah.
The process, and like with y'all, I am learning to like breathe through
Breathe.
the process.
Yes. Yes. What are some of the things that you do for self-care? Because you're working full time. You're also doing a lot of your activism work. So you're doing a lot of things out there that takes a lot. And then, it's like doing work here with us. So that's a lot that you're taking on. So what are you doing for self-care work?
um it's trial and error. We're trying to figure that out. But I think thinking about self-care, especially like in the times right now, it's like an entire privilege to even take the time to take care of yourself in any way. So I start with just gratitude, because that I feel I've noticed that brings, it kind of fills my cup when it's empty or when I'm drained. Like, I just say, I'm grateful for my breath. I'm grateful for like this house and being able to like look outside and experience the trees and the clouds, like things like that. Um, and it really just like brings a lot of, it grounds me, it centers me, and it fills me back up, because I'm not lacking. I'm only like just taking a slight pause, but never lacking, like in terms of the will to continue to push, to continue to keep doing the things that I'm doing. But also like things like yoga, walking, exercising, really help as well.
I like that you actually named it, right? That it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to take the time for self-care. And that's one of the things that we don't talk about enough in our society. That, it's like, wow, what a privilege for you to be able to just stop and breathe and to be able to just wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm going to, for me, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go Pilates for an hour, right? That is all a privilege. And there are many, many out there who their cortisol level is pumping through their bloodstream 24/7 for survival. Imagine what is happening over in Palestine right now,
Yeah.
right? Every person cannot sleep. They cannot eat. They cannot drink. They don't, I mean, it's like some of them are gathering parts of their babies' bodies. It's like how horrible that'd be. And if we could just imagine if that was something that we were going through right now, how would we want other people to react? How
Exactly.
would we want other people to help us? I mean, I'm just imagining a mom. I mean, I'm a grandmother. I'm a mother. I can just imagine it's like, oh my gosh, this is the life, right? And all of that stress. And we don't talk about enough on what stress does to us.
Yeah.
We walk around every single day with cortisol pumping into our bloodstream from the moment we wake up because we've got deadlines, we've got work to do, we've got bills to pay, we've got angry bosses to deal with, we've got inequitable policies that we have to uphold even though we don't want to. But it's like we've got to survive, and so we do that, and then we find ourselves stressed out, high blood pressure, kidney disease, cancer, anxiety, depression, that we need to medicate in order for us to remain dedicated, right? It's like, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's not freedom, Paula.
I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
there
I
is
guess
definitely a lot.
it was here you go. It's like a package. The platinum package, ultra, and the gold package. I don't know. Like the US gives you here, there's actually only one package on how to live and survive. But you can't, there's no other way to live. There's no other way to be free. This is the only way. And like, I don't know. There's, I feel like we are currently surviving because that's all that this government has given, like, that's the only option this government has given us, or like a lot of people in the US. But I don't think we realize that we hold so much power as a collective in this, as consumers. We have so much power that if we just decided to stop working, to stop buying things as a collective, we could do so much.
Yep.
But we're so like, this government has pushed us into survival mode that
Hmm.
we don't have the energy to even do that.
Yep. And we're consumerists. That's what we are actually conditioned to do. That's what K-12 is, right? It's like, let's just go ahead and start training people on how to go to work. It's like you're going to wake up, you're going to work all the way until this time, and then you're going to work again, and you're going to come back in. It's like, and then from here, you're going to go to work. After high school, you're going to go to work, and you're going to do all of these things.
Yeah.
You're going to pay into society. And if you're stressed, and if, I mean, it's like, that's great. You're making all of this money. Now you've got a big house, and now you need the car to actually go with that. And then you need to go ahead and make sure that Amazon is at your house every single day, delivering everything that you need.
No, literally, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's it's like sometimes I feel it's, I have a, I have a, it's like it's two different realities. One of the my reality is that I would love to have a country or live a life where we could absolutely be free of everything. And then in the same breath, I'm speaking into this expensive mic. I am recording on this computer. I
Yeah.
am living in this house. I drive a car and I put gas, and I have Amazon coming to my house every other day. And so it's like, wow, how do we find this place of grace and balance within it all? And so that way we can be better people. We don't have to give everything up, but how can we do it to where we are looking at the betterment of all society instead of ourselves? And what balances could we have? Maybe, I mean, it's like we do drink out of recyclable bottles. We have chickens, we have our garden, we have all of these things. And so it's like, is that enough? I'm always asking myself, is that enough? I want to do better, yet within the same breath of saying I want to do better, there are other things that I'm doing that actually plays into everything we're trying to do. It's so fucking complex. So
No,
many different layers to it.
truly. See, we are the colonized and the colonizer
Yes.
at the same time. And it's that battle. Like, yeah, I talk about it all the time with my friends. I just like, how do we keep on doing what we're doing, but also holding ourselves accountable to changing? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
it's a lot, I mean, I don't think there's not an easy answer to it all. There's really not. I think if we are aware of, the impact that our footprint has, that maybe we could be a little bit more careful and mindful on the things that we do. I mean, yeah, it's so complex, and no one has the right answer. No one has the right answer to politics, to education, to policy, to whatever it is. And I think that's why we need each other.
Mhm.
Need each other. So then that way we can ensure that everyone is being taken care of, that we can care for one another, and try to find peace and harmony within it all, and not just here in the United States, but this aloha can stretch across the entire globe.
Mhm.
I don't know how, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think,
So yeah, go ahead.
well, it's not, it's kind of related. I don't know, but I think like with the Palestinian movement, like 70, even 60 years ago, it wasn't being talked about the way that it is now.
Hmm.
And probably back then they were thinking like how is this going to reach the world? Like how is this going to be a global movement? And here we are. And so I think with the same thing, like with Aloha and like those principles, maybe it really could like span the world, the globe. It's just gonna take a couple time, like a couple years, decades, but with consistent effort into like sharing those principles with people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's these these principles is actually an extension of um Auntie Palahi Paki, who she's passed away. I think she passed away back in the 80s. But it's like her hope, and her vision of it was, I mean, she says that when the world starts to search for peace, they'll look to Hawaii, because Hawaii has a key, and that key is aloha. And so the work of the guiding principles of aloha is just an extension of what she's done. And I'm hoping that this work will extend to the next generation. and the next generation and the next generation, and then hopefully we'll be able to get to this place. I don't know if I'll be able to see it. I hope I do, but I think the work that we put forth right now is not for is not for just us. It's for the next generation to come.
Yeah.
That's the best that I can do in regards to leaving a legacy and being able to honor, the ancestors of the shoulders that I stand upon. And it's a it's a lot of work, but it's heart work, right? Is that, when when I work towards, co-creating cohesive communities, creating a world where, we can show up as our true selves, be able to have conversations, even though it may be messy and
Yeah.
sometimes chaotic, being able to hold that space for emergence and growth, I think is important. So, I was going to ask you, so what's your favorite books? Like, what are some of the books that you're reading that's like behind you?
Um, well, none of these ones none of these ones here, but I am reading let's see. This one right now.
Oh,
It's called The Revolution of 1936-39 in Palestine by Ghassan Kanafani. Um, and I went to a teach-in, or like a group discussion of sorts, like a study group, where we talked about the book, and how it relates to like the movement now. And so basically it's his analysis of how the Zionist project continued to move into Palestine and how it succeeded essentially. And then like all of the different factors, the forces, the players that played into like how history went about. And so it's really good because you can really, it's a parallel to like now, at least in the US and even in Palestine, like what's happening now. Um, yeah. Yeah, this one.
say more about that parallel that you see.
Well, in his book, it talks about, so I forgot the triangle. There was a triangle, I forgot what it was called, but there's three forces. So the British imperialist forces that were helping out like the Zionists with their intent to like push people out of homes and take the land. There was there was them. Then there was the Zionists, and then there was Arab. I forgot what it was phrased, but there was Arab bourgeoisies that were playing in the interest of the Zionists and the British imperialists. And so we can kind of see that now parallel, where instead of the British regime, it's the US funding all of the aid, all of the military power to Israel. Because if it wasn't for the US, Israel would not have the arms, like the resources to continuously destroy a whole peoples, and even like the countries outside of like Palestine. So there's that parallel, but then within the Palestinian movement, he also analyzes like the different groups, and he talks about the workers, the intellectuals, and let's see. Well, the workers and the intellectuals. And so the workers are or have been the people that were entirely displaced, or have their livelihood comes from the land. But because that land is being destroyed, they have no other option but to fight, but to revolutionize, because if not, they're going to die. And so he talks about like all of the roles that they played in the rising, like kind of atmosphere of a revolution, to what led to the revolution of 1936 and 39. And so we kind of see that now, like here, where like the working class, like a lot of people that need money are the ones that are primarily out there fighting, are the ones that are taking to the streets when like, yeah, they could be working and getting money that they probably need for their rent. So we're seeing that like parallel now, which has kind of helped me like kind of figure out what my role is and like how I can bring other people in as well. But yeah.
That's awesome, Paula. That's awesome. Keep doing that work. You know, I mean, it's like I think with I feel like, you know, there is this there's power in numbers. And I feel that there's also power in intergenerational support. Um, you know, a lot of times I can hear like the generation before me is like, oh, looking back and like, oh, you know, this generation is just so messed up. And then we're looking back and saying, well, that generation is just so old and all of this other kind of stuff. I think that if we're open to be able to learn and understand each other, that we'll be able to support each other intergenerationally.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of healing that needs to be done within those generations, but we can do it. We can do it. You know, I mean, it's like every generation has their high points and they also have their low points as well too. Every generation has that. But we are of the generation prior.
Yeah.
We
Truly.
all wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the generation prior.
Yes.
So it's like we can take that wisdom, right? We can take that learning. We'll be able to actually work together instead of against each other. And you know, it's like I hear a lot of times where it's like, oh, this generation. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're the one that birthed this generation. So maybe you should start looking at yourself and
Yeah.
asking yourself the question about, hmm, what I do here and how can I, you know, how can I be part of this change? Right?
Yeah.
It's like I think it's always asking how can we be part of the change instead of trying to be against it. So keep doing the work that you're doing. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of, you know, just the things that you've you're doing, you know, and it's exciting to see where it'll take you. And I'm honored. I'm honored that you have taken some of the you know, like the guiding principles of Aloha, and it has impacted you to where you're utilizing it in your life as well too. And that makes me feel good. It's like, okay, well, this is the work.
Yes, ma'am. It's important work, and I'm happy that you're doing it because it's also not easy. Uh, but I'm grateful you're doing it.
Well, and I'm not doing it alone, right? It's like I'm doing it with, you know, with you all and everything like that, which makes it, which it doesn't make it so heavy to carry. I mean, although there's moments where, you know, it is heavy to do this work, but I think we find strength again in each other and, you know, knowing that the only way that we can create change is by doing it together. So, can you believe that it's been an hour already?
That's crazy. Time flies when you're having fun.
Exactly, exactly. So if there was one message that you could leave for you know, for our listeners, just for today, what comes up for you in your heart?
Um, I think especially living here, practicing like in the US, practicing gratitude at the very least, because you can't deny that it's a privilege, and I don't know, it's a privilege to like have a house. And it shouldn't be a privilege. Like, we should be granted that, but that's not the world that we live in. And so just being grateful, like, for whatever the case may be, your family, the fact that you are able to think bigger than like outside of yourself. Grateful for music, grateful for community, just practicing gratitude, and also committing yourself to learning, because I don't know, it makes it easier to learn things when you're grateful.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that is one word that I hold to my heart as well too, is to just be grateful for the fact that you woke up today, right? And you're able to have fresh water and have a shower and clean clothes, and that your family is here and alive and well. That is so much to be grateful for, because not everyone can say that. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much for being here with me today, and sharing your heart and your time. And yeah, I look forward to having you come here and do more work on, the next time you're here.
Thank you.
Monday's a holiday, so it's like, yeah, so probably Tuesday or anything. But anyway, I wanted to thank everyone for being here with us. You have been listening to the Evolution of Aloha podcast, a Plowline Media production. So tune in for upcoming episodes with other amazing peeps. And don't forget to subscribe to the Evolution of Aloha and the Plowline podcast, available on all popular podcast platforms. And to help us continue with this work, we would really appreciate if you became one of our supporters and head over to patreon.com// Plowline Productions. Your contributions will go directly toward producing and building engaging and quality content. And again, this podcast is a Plowline Media production. So until our next time together, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and aloha, everyone, and mahalo. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.